What is up? We are doing this again, and this time, I actually had multiple ideas for a video. For the videos before, I just thought of something and I decided to make something about it, but here we're going to be doing something a little different. I actually thought of something. I was looking through some posts online I've made, not just on social media, but on other places, and there was something that caught my eye, and I decided that I wanted to make a video about it. This is going to be more of a fun video, and it'll be really interesting because I think if you haven't really given this a lot of thought, then it'll be something that could intrigue you at first, but I'll talk about it and you'll quickly see and understand why this is a dumb thing. But yeah, let's get into it. Oh yeah, apologies. The gameplay is going to be slightly worse. The quality of it just I don't think was as good as last time. So I'll try and get better quality gameplay next time. So the topic at hand today is actually a post from online. Yep, we're going back to the X post, and we have quite something from the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. Now, libertarians and libertarianism, to me, it's really dumb, and I cannot really take them seriously. I struggle to take them seriously. I mean, I try, but I really can't. And this account, however, is one that is somewhat better than the other ones because it acknowledges some truths that I will not be elaborating on. And they made quite the post. Quite the post. They say in it, let's read it together: privatize ICE. It should be legal for any American citizen to detain, arrest, and deport illegal alien invaders. Now, on the surface, a lot of people may think, oh yeah, this is great. But there's a few problems here, and let's go over them one by one. So, okay, what is the most basic reason that companies exist? Well, something you'll notice in almost every company is that they make money. They make a net gain of money. What they spend on doing what they do is outweighed by what they make from selling it or some other kind of way of making money. That is called profit. And profit is essentially the reason for every company right now in the world and ever. And now the problem, instantly, if you are smart, you might have catched on to this by now, but there's a issue with privatizing a company with a certain goal like this. If we have a company that is trying to make money by doing something, then as soon as it no longer has to do that thing or it has been replaced, then that company is likely going to begin losing because obviously it's no longer profitable. It can't do anything that people think is of value anymore. And if we apply that logic over to a privatized ICE, how would it go? Well, it's pretty simple to see it. A privatized ICE, how would they get paid? That is the first question, because remember, this would pretty much be, it's a public service being done, but they still need to get paid. So who would pay them? Well, it would be likely the government, and it would likely be based on the amount of people who are deported. Now, this sounds sound in theory, but immediately there's a problem with it that you'll never forget. And that problem is the fact that in order for this privatized ICE for them to make money, because remember, they're trying to make money now. They're trying to make money now. The only way they can do that is if they continue to have illegal immigrants and illegal aliens to deport. If they successfully were to deport all of them, then they no longer have a business and they go bankrupt. And I don't think any of us would want that. I don't think any of us at all would want that. And because of that, because of this issue here, the only way that the business stays profitable and we avoid an ICE that is bankrupted is for them to lobby or ask the government, try and get the government to increase the amount of legal immigration happening. This is the only way they could make as much money as possible. It would actually reward them when they are able to get more illegal immigrants into the country, and they would probably push for dismantling of the border wall, for example, the border wall, because then it becomes really easy for someone to just walk in and then, go somewhere, and then this private ICE will be able to detain and deport them and make money off of it. It makes it so much easier for a private ICE if just the border wall is destroyed. And so they would likely lobby for these things, and who knows how bad it could get. They could be lobbying for almost anything. They could be lobbying for tons and tons and tons of illegal immigration just because they want to make money. Now, of course, they probably wouldn't say that out loud, but it's their business model. How else would they make money if all the illegal aliens are gone? And so I think this would be a case in where privatizing a public good is actually not going to help. If you're trying to get rid of a problem, let's just say illegal immigrants are a problem for this. If you're trying to get rid of a problem and you task a private company to do it and pay them for each part of the problem that is removed, they need to create more of that problem in order to stay in business. That is just how it works. And as a result of that, all you would get is just more illegal immigration. So that is the first point, and the second point will not be as convincing, but I do think it is still quite firm, and it is still definitely a good reason against this. Okay, now this problem is again on a structural level with how this works. Now, let's think of it very, very simply. If a company is presented with two different choices, and these two different choices have different levels of risk, but have the same level of reward, they will always pick the one with the least risk and the one with, actually not higher profit, because they both have the same level of profit. The reward is the same, but the risk is different. They always pick the one with the lowest risk. That is not crazy, and I don't think anyone thinks that assumption is. But when you have something like ICE, which is meant to do something indiscriminately or carry out an indiscriminate action, that creates issues, because when you're doing something such as law enforcement, if you're maximizing your profit, if you're trying to make money, you're not going to apply the law equally. This is if you're a private, say, police company, or the private ICE in our scenario, they would go for the easy targets. They would go for the people who are doing the least damage to this country. And just to completely clarify, I am in favor of deporting all illegal immigrants, no matter how long they've been here, no matter their background. They have to go. But the truth is that, some are in fact worse than others, and the worst ones would never get deported under this system, because why would a private ICE risk more damage to themselves, loss of lives, when instead they could just go and deport other people who are likely not going to be able to fight back, and even if they do, they don't have the means to be able to carry out significant harm on the members or the workers of that private ice. And so obviously they'll just choose that option, and they avoid any risk, and they make the same amount of money. It's that simple. Now, of course, you could argue that the government may offer a larger amount of money for people with known criminal records or, certain things, but one that's very arbitrary to figure out, especially because it relies on local crime data, and it relies on them reporting that, and it requires sorting out through all of it, and that would require a level of bureaucracy and oversight which we really don't have in our current government, and determining how much you'd have to pay extra to account for that risk would have to be quite a large amount, and some people in the government may just think that it's actually worth more if X more people get deported in exchange, and they have to pay a lot less money. Like maybe the cost of deporting 5 people is actually cheaper, or the cost of paying for the company for deporting 5 people is actually less than for deporting one guy who was a known user of children, trafficker of children, and possessor of firearms. And so I think this would be a huge problem, because it would it would pretty much get rid of a lot of the least bad parts of the problem without actually hitting the worst parts, and that would be bad. And this would happen in any sort of institution where it's meant to enforce the law, but instead it is motivated by risk and profit. A private police agency would not want to go out and send officers to investigate people who are doing things that are more dangerous. The least dangerous things they would be more prioritized on, and as a result of that, it may cost a lot more for the average Joe. It may cost them, I know that hypothetically there could be some sort of subscription services or insurance, like health insurance, but instead it's for police and firefighters. And now this doesn't really apply to firefighters, because this is more about enforcing the law and not just insurance of property. But it's the same basic concept applies, but we'll continue with the police officer thing. Police officers would just definitely always go for the easy pickings, because the risk of arresting random people who are likely drunk is very easy, while the risk of arresting a guy who is a known serial killer, that poses a lot more risk to everyone involved, and they don't want to take that risk. And this is even worse in a scenario like when you don't have a government, which some libertarians actually advocate for. They advocate for stateless societies. State is just, like a country. They don't want any nations. And if you don't have any nations, then there's pretty much nothing stopping a private police force from just going after the lightest offenses and just prioritizing those instead. But likely that wouldn't be very successful, because they'd have to restructure themselves, and government would no longer be paying them for doing the services, like how we're assuming at the privatized. So it's way more nuanced than I'll get into right here, but the concept really applies to this area of service providing to people, and that's pretty much the main idea of this section. Anyways, let's move on to the third. Okay, so who knew? Who really knew that it actually turns out that this would actually be a really dumb idea? And I think that we've been really overthinking this. I think that we've been really just worrying too much about it. Like, we've actually been taking this idea way too seriously, and I think that's a problem. I said at the beginning of this video, this would be funny, this would be fun, and I think this is where it really comes in. You may wonder, how? Well, ICE does way more than deportations. They have to investigate a lot of things like transnational crime. They have to address cyber crime. They're part of the DHS. They address they do counterterrorism. They do a ton of stuff. Okay, they do a lot, and deportations is just a small part of that. And then when you add on all the problems that they would have with immigration, with deportations, to every other thing, it would create a huge mess that in order to control, we would need way more bureaucracy, and we need way more oversight than we have right now, certainly. And so because of that, the better option is just to keep ICE a public service, an agency, a public agency. And like, if it's private, then everything I've said about how it forces it to keep a certain thing going in order to make money, it's forced in some way to keep one thing going alive, or at least it has to be able to balance out doing good in one place with allowing another place to run rampant, so that way there's always a good market there, while in the other part they've actually crushed that. And again, the amount of arbitrary decisions that have to be made in order for a contract to properly enforce this. Remember, these agencies, a private ICE, with all that they have, they could easily game those terms. And I mean, the U.S. government doesn't have much leverage because this is ICE. This is ICE. They do so much, and if the government gets angry at them, this private ICE could just instantly decide, we're not going to participate. We're not going to do this anymore. And that, no one wants just, a rogue private army, really. So, in conclusion, it's just dumb. It's just really dumb, man. I really didn't think to put this at the beginning because I thought it would delegitimize the original points I made, the first and second points. But now that we've gotten through those, just take a step back and remember this. This whole concept is just dumb. Privatizing ICE is dumb. I don't even think this account meant it. Then again, they might have, considering they're libertarians and they're always hardline on a lot of stuff. And if we're gonna end this video now, I want to leave you with something important, okay? Something important. I think it's somewhere in the middle of these takes here between both sides. Government is everything, government is nothing. And it's that the government cannot guarantee you anything. It cannot guarantee you equal enforcement of the law. It cannot guarantee that the law will always be perfectly applied, even if it is enforced. It does not guarantee that there will be fair laws. It does not guarantee that penalties will be correct. But without a government, you don't have any chance of that, and it is decided by the strong. It is decided by profit, and it's not decided by a non-profit motivated for the public good. It's not motivated by the public good. The mechanism that determines how it succeeds is profit, not what the people think, and not not the people who are directly affected by it. And so I think that that's just something to remember. With the government, the they get a good chance of having impartial enforcement of the law. Now, it's not guaranteed, of course, but when you don't have a government, there's no chance of that at all, because if the courts are motivated by just making money, then what's to say that they could just be bribed off? Like, there's no mechanism to prevent corruption, and I mean, you could say, well, the places that don't do corruption would have a better reputation. How so? How so, though? If they are efficient, if they do a quality job, if they do it at a low price for the consumer, then who cares? No one cares, because the price and quality of something are the main two factors in if it will be bought. But I think that is where we will be ending the video. This was pretty fun to make. I think might have been the most fun, to make of these videos that I've made so far. Tell me, I guess, how you think. Congratulations if you made it to the end here. Hopefully it wasn't boring, but can't make any promises given the subject material. But yeah.